I guess I was around 7 years old, and we moved out to a farm in Panett, in eastern PEI. And being on a farm, there was all sorts of ways to, raise some cash. I'd done a bit in Charlottetown, like collected bottles and whatnot on the side of the road. But once I got to the farm, I realized I could, grow, uh, cucumbers, carrots. I did a bunch of stuff like that, and then raised chickens and also dug clams and had a bunch of little things like that going on. Eventually, got some cattle and had a bit of an enterprise happening.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what was that experience like starting at the age of 7? My goodness.
Well, it was great. I mean, it taught me a lot about managing a business and actually about hard work and I was encouraged by my family, especially my father, and it was a really good experience.
How did you market your goods?
Oh, it's easy when you're 7. You can sell almost anything as a 7-year-old, right? So yeah, I'd look to people that my parents knew, friends and neighbors, and I actually walked the streets of Charlottetown for my clams and went to different restaurants and knocked on the door and asked if they'd want to buy clams. My dad would take them in the morning when he'd go into work. So, yeah.
Do you remember some of your customers?
Well, the Ancient Mariner was one. That was my natural dad, Phil Stoshnoff, owned that. He was buying those. Queen Street Meat Market was one, and it wasn't on University then. I think it might even, I don't know if it was ever on Queen Street, but wherever it was, they were one of the customers.
Must have raised a few eyebrows among your
Sure.
clients, did it? I mean, here comes this kid.
Yeah, a bit. Yeah, I'm sure. At the time, I didn't think much of it.
How did you feel? Did you know then that you were headed for a business career?
Not really, no. I was always really interested in it, but I never really looked, I was never really tied to doing that. I was also very interested in science and technology, so, I guess until later years, I never really thought of tying those two things together.
You were good in school, were you?
Yeah, I did all right in school. Yeah. I love science and math and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I was going to ask about the influence of your father,
Yeah.
Captain John Aspin.
Yeah. So he influenced me a lot on the marine side for sure, and that got me interested in being on the water for fun, but also as I got closer to going to college, where I would go and what I'd take in school. So yeah.
Tell me about that decision.
Well, the Coast Guard College, I struggled with whether to take an engineering degree. I had a scholarship at UNB and or a science degree, or marine engineering was the other potential career for me, and that was through the Coast Guard College. So at the end, I decided on the Coast Guard College, and I thought I'd probably go back to university afterwards and either carry on. I was actually considering a law degree as well, but I did do a bit of work at a law firm before I went to school. I decided that I'd probably stick with the technical side of things.
What were the kind of things you learned at the Coast Guard College?
Well, it was an engineering program, so marine engineering program is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. But you can become more specified afterwards, which I kind of did. But it teaches you, if you're running a vessel, you have to understand all elements of engineering, really. Civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, all elements are part of running a ship. It's like a small city.
How long a program was that?
It was 3 years, 3 condensed years. So you did kind of 11 months a year. Mm-hmm. It's now a 4-year program. Same thing.
Was it like being in the military? Were you in fact in the military?
It's kind of they call it paramilitary, but it's not really a strict type of military organization. Although you do your marching and stuff like that. But yeah.
What did you do upon graduation then?
Well, you're committed to 3 years with the Coast Guard after that. So I went with the Coast Guard and I sailed with them and worked as an engineer. And I spent, I guess, 5 years in the fleet and working different vessels and working my way up through the ranks. And then at one point I decided that I needed to look at private industry, and it was get out of the government.
Was all of this travel with the Coast Guard in Canadian waters?
Yeah, most of it was. Yeah, I spent some time up in northern Siberia on one mission that we did up in the Arctic. But yeah,
you think of the challenges we're experiencing this winter, and we're relying very much on our Canadian Coast Guard to keep things open in the Cabot Strait and the Gulf of St. Lawrence and the high Arctic and wherever. It must have been a great fertile learning ground for you.
It was for sure. I mean, it was great for you. You had the ability to really, tackle anything you wanted with that sort of career. That there weren't many people holding you back, saying, "No, you can't do that," or we have to, wait for approval. It was kind of an interesting period of time because automation and technology was moving at a fairly rapid rate right around that time and being introduced into the marine field. So a lot of the people that were around that were more senior weren't used to the technology that was being put on board the vessels. So you got a chance to kind of pick it up, and if you're willing to run with it, you had a lot of opportunities.
So you would have been like first in line to take on the challenges that every day might have brought up.
Yeah, yeah, I was for sure. There's lots of others that were too, but it was a good time to be in that organization for sure.
Talk about the Coast Guard as being a paramilitary group. I imagine it's pretty regimented environment. I mean, orders coming from the top on down. Did you thrive or did you chafe in that environment? How would you describe your experience?
I guess I chafed a little bit, but I think it was probably in a healthy way for myself and for the organization. I think I didn't do things unquestioningly, but I'd always be there to question things, and I was young, so I did lots of dumb stuff too. So
Like what?
just going out and having fun with
Yeah.
we were sailors, so
Learning something new every day, I guess.
yep, yeah, for sure.
Was the decision, Jason, to pursue your own course, was that an inspired moment, or would you liken it to a drawn-out process? I wonder, what do you remember about that fork in the road?
Yeah. Well, there was a couple of forks, I guess. It was a few steps. I dabbled around in businesses as soon as I graduated from the Coast Guard. Even I got into real estate and had some houses and rentals and stuff like that. And so running the business, as soon as I got out of school, I didn't have a farm to resort back to, but I certainly started doing stuff on my own, and that I think that kept that level of interest up for me. And I knew at that point that I'd eventually want to be doing something. I just couldn't really put my finger on what it was. And eventually, I knew I needed to leave the government, and it was I'd gone as far as I could go, really, and I didn't see the career changing too much as I continued to progress. So I went to the private industry, and I was worried about that. I thought it was going to be a big change. It was a big change. So that was the first step into going out on my own, I think. And I spent a year in a company that it was a good experience, but I didn't want to stay there. It wasn't the right fit for me, or I wasn't the right fit for it. And at that point, that gave me enough of a push to start up our own business.
Was that a marine design engineering firm you went to after you dabbling in the real estate?
It was well, I continued to dabble in the real estate for forever, pretty much. The firm I went to was a tug and barge company, so I went as the vice president of engineering, and so it was a small firm. So you were actually doing everything from ordering turkeys to getting down, just making the boat go type thing. So I followed this small fleet of boats around the Great Lakes and did that for a year, kept it going. It was running cement around the Great Lakes.
So when, Jason, did you launch your own ship?
So that was April 30th, 1996. Yeah.
What happened that day?
Well, I'd previously met a gentleman named Neil Kemp, the co-founder of AKA with me. And that would have been about 2 or 3 years ago. And we'd sat in Halifax and over a bottle of wine kind of talked about how neat it would be to run the perfect business, or the business that we thought would be perfect, and what we could do. And we had no idea that we would be in business together. But 2-3 years later, we found ourselves at a crossroads, both of us in our lives, that we were able to take that first step, and we did it.
Must have been an exciting time, was it?
It was, yeah. We didn't know what we were going to do. I mean, we called ourselves AK Unlimited at first because we thought we could do almost anything, or we try doing almost anything. Yeah.
Great confidence.
Well, it wasn't so much confidence. We just knew that we had to make money, so we didn't matter what came around the corner. We were willing to give it a shot.
How did you feel when you woke up that first morning without your secure job, facing an uncertain future?
Well, it's funny. We'd actually gone out and thought that the best thing to do would be to get some sort of security in our business that was, some sort of cash flow early on. We both saved up some money, so we invested in a franchise that was a technology franchise early on, and it turned out to be not a good franchise. They were basically taking people to the cleaners, and we'd saved up about $80,000 between the two of us to invest, and that was pretty much gone within the first 4 months. So we realized about 4 months in, because this was going to be the cushion while we developed our consulting business. And we realized within the first 4 months that it was cheaper for us just to shut down and not pay people. And it was pretty dire. So we went home one weekend, and it was kind of one of these make or break weekends. We had to decide whether to throw in the towel or whether whether there was something else we could do. So I wrote up a proposal for a vessel in the Coast Guard that I knew needed some help, and that was our first big job, was a job in the Coast Guard.
That was your lifeline, eh?
That was our lifeline. Yeah, it was it's like a $60,000 project that kept us going for 3 or 4 months, and that was the start of it. Yeah.
How old were you then?
I would have been 96. So yeah, I was 30.
30 years old.
Yeah.
Married?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were still on your own.
I had a girlfriend at the time, but yeah.
How did you manage when you look back on it to get past the fear, the uncertainty?
Well, once you make the step, you're pretty much committed, and we managed to dig ourselves in pretty deep. So once you get dug in deep, you're really committed, and the only way to make it happen is just to push and not give up. And I think that's a huge part of it, is just being really stubborn.
You're a stubborn person?
Well, when it comes to trying to make something work, I don't give up on that sort of thing.
When you look at that launching of your own ship here, your own business enterprise, what do you think you did correctly that you look back on and say, "Why, that was the smartest move I ever made"?
Oh, wow. At the launch, boy, I don't think we did very much right at all. I think all we did, the things that we did that were correct, really would be just learning from the mistake that we made yesterday, and that's really what it was all about. It was a pretty steep learning curve.
It's very honest of you to say that.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Because I was going to ask, what were the early mistakes?
Yeah, well, there's lots of those. I mean, buying a franchise that was dubious and ended up fleecing us and a lot of other people, that was bad, and that was the big one. But really, I can't look back at any of them as mistakes, because if we hadn't bought that franchise and hadn't backed ourselves into a corner, we probably would have been on a different track right now. I mean, it would have been more comfortable. We would have maybe not dug in as hard and pushed as hard to get things working, because we would have had that comfort. So
is that like saying when your back's against the wall, you're going to come up with an idea?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Who did you rely on for support and guidance during those difficult days? I mean, you had your partner, you could commiserate and be miserable together, but when it came to trying to see the light at the end of the tunnel, who were your guideposts?
Oh, well, I had friends that were, for sure, and my parents were, and my brother was, for sure, and then from a business point of view, it was a combination of things. We ended up getting involved with a person that I'd met in the Coast Guard. We were wearing different hats, and I was the customer, and he was working for Siemens, and he ended up being a huge part of our business, and is still today as a client now. And he works for Transocean now, but he provided a lot of guidance through the early years, and and still does today.
What would he say to you?
Well, I mean, he just he was very much about. He had a very, I don't know what you call it, a way of looking at business that was opposite to mine, probably in a lot of ways, and he took a pretty hard line on some things, but he was able to. He's very good at sales and strategy, and so we talk about strategy quite a bit, and just always with the long-term view. So that he never doesn't take shortcuts, and he's the kind of guy that has this 10, 15 year sort of view on things, and that was really helpful.
Do you still regard him today as a mentor, Jason?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
How long did it take to achieve your first success? You talked about the $60,000 lifeline, but beyond that?
Well, it took forever. Seemed like forever. I when I started the business, I probably couldn't imagine when we first started the business missing more than one paycheck. I'd been in the government for a long time, and that was and then the private company that I was in, it was always very consistent, and anyway, once we started the business, that paycheck stopped for about 3 years, I guess. It was a long time to get to the point where we were comfortable, because as soon as we started building the business, and we had employees to pay, and it was quite a while before the actual owners got paid, and that was tough. So yeah, that was a real struggle. But
was there a point, Jason, at which you said to yourself, you woke up some morning and said, "Yes, this is exactly what I want to do, and I feel confident in doing it"?
Yeah. I guess we ended up getting some work out on the West Coast in Seattle, and at that point we were doing training and some engineering and documentation, and I could tell that we really had found a niche for the business at that point that didn't exist, and we were getting lots of really positive feedback, and that was kind of the fuel that kept me going. Even though there wasn't money coming in personally, the company was starting to make money, and I could see that we were gaining some traction, and that there was some real potential in the business.
The business evolved then. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
it
for
evolved.
sure.
It wasn't just what you intended starting out, but today it's quite different, I would assume, from what the very early years were.
Yeah. So originally, when we started it, we saw that there was a gap in the technology that I talked about in the Coast Guard that I started my career with was new to the marine field, and in the process of this being delivered by companies to customers, we saw a pretty big gap in what was available for information, for training for people, and for documentation on how systems worked. Systems used to always be very clear when they were just electrical configurations, and you could always figure it out or understand it by looking at a drawing or a schematic. But as computers got introduced into the automation side of things, there's these black boxes that nobody could understand. So we saw an opportunity to try and fill that gap in and provide an integrated sort of documentation or information set and training to the people that own these vessels, and fill in a gap that industry was leaving. So that was how we started, and it changed from that. That's always been a core part of our business, and still is today, to make sure that we provide the information needed to support people's systems. But it changed into project management, it changed into additional engineering, and it changed into providing solutions to solve problems that existed in the marine industry, and then eventually we started to manufacture those solutions, not just engineer them. So yeah, and that's where we are today.
I'm getting a better understanding of what your business is today. But for someone who's just walked into you for the very first time and asked you this very simple question, what do you make?
We make power, propulsion, and automation systems for the marine sector. So marine and oil and gas, so anything that's on the water. We do land-based stuff as well, but it's mostly in the electrical side and controls. So,
where would I find your products on a vessel?
well, if you looked at the generating plant, the plant that supplies electricity for all the vessel, that would be our product. The controls for that plant, the controls for the propulsion side of things, that would be the type of stuff that we would deliver.
Entrepreneurs are risk takers.
Yeah.
What was the scariest business risk you ever took?
Well, we've taken a few. I guess one of them went quite poorly. We in 2001, after 9/11, we were doing quite well. The company was up to we had about 30 or 40 people, and we were making decent revenue, and we had several clients that were that were growing, and we decided to, at that point, we had several contracts that were just on the verge of being signed, and we decided that, well, after 9/11 happened, we basically, everybody seemed to shut down for a while, but we didn't think it would last that long, so we decided to keep spooled up as a company and keep everybody on staff and keep developing new product, and it almost cost us the company because it didn't come back for almost 2 years, the business. And after a year of that, we'd burned through the cash reserves that we had plus more, and we had to start letting people go, but we'd already dug ourselves in a pretty big hole. So we learned a really valuable lesson there. That was a risk that we took. I thought that it would turn around a lot faster than that, and I learned a lot from it.
Looking back on that decision that you and your partner made, was that a decision of the head or the heart?
Oh, it's probably both, but more of the heart, I think. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess when you haven't had the really bad downturn yet, it's hard to think that it's going to happen or that it can be as bad as it was. So we were, I guess, a little bit naive as well, and of course we wanted to keep everybody working, and we wanted to keep everybody rallied around the success that we'd had in the previous years. So we just kept going, and it turns out that was irresponsible, but we definitely learned a lot as a company, and our employees rallied behind us big time. I mean, if it wasn't for the employees, we wouldn't have a company today.
You certainly showed a great deal of loyalty to them.
Well, they've showed that to us, so yeah, it's a
two-way street.
Yeah, they're very much a two-way street. Yeah.
What's been your most satisfying business experience to date?
Well, I have to say, coming back to PEI has been probably the best part of running the business so far. Is just being able to engage back at home. I spent a lot of almost 15 years on the road, and enjoying the successes of the business and being very really getting a lot of satisfaction out of that. But being able to actually share that with people that I know and with the community that I grew up in, that's really, that means a lot to me.
Was it more than a personal decision, though, to come back to Prince Edward Island? I mean, from a business perspective, what made it attractive enough for you to take that leap? Well,
it was hard. I didn't know whether it would work. I mean, I got to be honest. I mean, when I knew I wanted to try and make it work. I had lots of people tell me that it probably wouldn't work, but I wanted to try it, and I guess what made it attractive and why I thought it might work is I know the community, I know the people that are here, I know they're hard workers, I know that I know that they're loyal, I know that it's a great spot to grow up and work, and I knew it would be I thought it would be a great spot to build a business, and it turns out that that's the truth, and lots of people were giving me warnings about, oh, you'll never be able to handle the logistics and you won't be able to get parts and stuff like that, but it's a pretty global environment right now, and that doesn't cause that many troubles.
It's going to run into the naysayers all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So here we have this little 7-year-old cucumber grower taking his high-tech business back to his home county.
Yeah.
How would you gauge the success of your move today?
Well, I think it's been very successful for me personally and for my family. My wife is part of the business as well, and she's a huge part of making it all work. I think that it's a long way from growing cucumbers, but it's hard to it's hard to look back on it and really believe it's all the same story. It's neat.
It's kind of come full circle.
It has, yeah, it has, and but the other people that have touched, like my wife, and the fact that she's part of this, and it's a huge.
You have children today?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, 2 kids. Yeah.
How old?
7 and 4 and 11.
4 and 11.
Yeah.
The 11-year-old growing cucumbers?
Not yet. Got to get him give him the entrepreneurial bug. Yeah.
Well, that brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
We all know that Prince Edward Island is fertile ground for growing things. I mean, potatoes, soybeans, numerous other crops that we can take from our rich red soil. But how fertile, in your experience now, is our island for the growth of entrepreneurs?
I think it's quite fertile. I just don't think that we pay enough attention to it. I think that just by definition, we have such a huge proportion, or history at least, of farmers and fishers and people like and tourism. I mean, all of the major industries in PEI actually, are very much focused around entrepreneurship, and I think that because of that, there's already a head start on that. We need to find the young kids that are growing cucumbers or lemonade stands, set up whatever it is that and try and harness that and engage them early.
How do we do that?
There's got to be programs that we look for in school that that do that. I think that we need to have a lot more focus on that, and it doesn't have to be. It just needs to nurture it a little bit more than what we have right now.
Do established businesses like your own, do they have any responsibility for the development of entrepreneurs in this province?
I think so. Yeah, I think that all businesses should be trying to give back in that area. Yeah, yeah.
Are they doing that?
I know our business is not doing it the way I'd like to. So I know that the chamber engages in this a bit, and we've had some activity with the chamber in that area. But I think that there's a lot more that could be done, and I don't know what the secret sauce is to make that happen. But certainly it is in part the business's responsibilities to.
Do you see a role for our education system as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if there could be a course, we have all sorts of other sorts of courses that are either trade related or whatever that kids engage in early. I think that if there's one that was around business, it would be helpful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you had any school tours through your facility?
No, we haven't yet. No. I'd love to have. I'd love to set up some. Some stuff that kids could come and see that's more interactive as far as technology goes as well. That's not just the stuff that we're building, but more of a hands-on sort of technical museum, if you want, or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that what the future is, do you think, for young Prince Edward Islanders today? I mean, we know we have our established base industries of farming and forestry and fishing and tourism and things of that nature, but where do you see it going in the next 10, 20 years?
I think on the island we really need to be focused on knowledge and technology, and it should be around the resources that we have. I mean, we have a great opportunity with an island and a jurisdiction that is a province that is so small and low inertia that we can really be a world leader in a bunch of areas if we put our minds to it. I think, and those areas are energy, which might seem counterintuitive. Just because we don't have any energy, we should be focused on any of the traditional sorts of sources of energy. We should be focused on how we build renewable energy solutions, and then on farming and the organic side of farming, I think is a huge potential in PEI. And if we build solutions that are cutting edge that other people can use as models, I think that that's something we can really sell in the future. But it's got to be a long-term sort of vision.
I've heard someone say in the information age, the age of knowledge, there are no borders.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that's right.
How about government? What role, if any, should government play?
Well, I think government needs to play a role, but I think their role should be in establishing policy that encourages the right direction and this long-term sort of build towards what our vision is. I don't think that they should be out there trying to actively bring other businesses, into the island in a shotgun sort of approach. I think that those businesses will find their way if the right incentives are there or the right policies are there for them to come. And I think those policies are, encouraging businesses to invest back into the island, encouraging businesses to invest back into technology and also into other businesses that are technology that can come to the island. It has to be, grown organically, I guess, as well. And
strategic, long-term planning,
exactly.
Not a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. Just because a company that's somewhere, overseas is shiny and wants to, it takes the bait on some sort of incentive. That's not something that will stick. And typically, at least that's what I think. I mean, the companies need to come here because they belong here, or they can build something here that is meaningful.
Mm-hmm. which really puts a great deal of onus on our education system because companies, if they want to come here, they want to come here to a knowledgeable workforce.
Absolutely, yeah, and they want to raise families in a place where their kids can get the best education as well. I mean, education's a huge part of bringing people here and keeping people here, I think, and building for the future. So,
Tell me more about that idea of education being a cornerstone, a building block.
well, it's just fundamental to advancing the island as far as technology goes. It's fundamental to keeping people here. I mean, I know lots of people that end up leaving because they want their kids to have a higher level of education, and we have to try and stop that from happening. And the only way to do that is to continue to build on education.
Jason, what message do you have right now for someone who's struggling with the decision to become an entrepreneur, who's on the cusp of launching their own business ship?
Well, it's a long road, and I'm going to kill my phone here, guys. Sorry.
Right?
Yeah, I would say to somebody who's starting their own business that be ready, be forewarned, but if you're passionate about it and you really want to do it, then absolutely go after it. But you got to believe in what you're going to do, and you can't just be doing it for the sake of business. It's not really business that is the driver. It's got to be what you want to build or what you want to do that has to be the driver, and you got to be passionate about that, and you got to be prepared to be running very lean with nothing for a long time, and to be at the point where you feel like you could throw in the towel several times. I mean, it's a long process, and there's no easy street that I've found anyway as far as making it happen. And I think that's true with most people I've talked to.
What's the great reward for enduring all of that?
Well, it's seeing something being built up from nothing. I think that's a huge thing, and having people to work alongside of you on something that you've created. It's very satisfying.
That's good advice for the person trying to decide to be an entrepreneur. What about the person who's already done so? The one that may be experiencing that difficult, challenging time, who's looking for their lifeline to rescue them from what right now might seem insurmountable challenges. What advice, what encouragement can you offer that person?
Well, I think that don't give up. That's the first one. I mean, I guess there's some point where you have to give up, but I never got there, and I hope I never do. And I'd say to anybody that is facing those challenges to just focus on that there's just no option except for success, and then try and find where that is, and don't be scared to think outside the box and look for different partnerships that you might not have thought of, or totally different doors that you may never have considered opening. And there's always opportunity around, and often you just need to change the way you're thinking and look for that. And
Jason, I want to thank you very much for your insightful comments today.
oh, thank you.
And I'm sure we're going to hear more bigger things from you in the future as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Take care.